He hired her to sing at his mother's funeral as an act of charity, a gesture from a powerful man to a street performer. But when Sophia opened her mouth and sang a lullaby in perfect, ancient Korean, a song only his mother had ever sung to him, his world shattered in front of everyone. This is Sophia, a 22-year-old street performer with a voice that stops traffic, and Min Jun, a billionaire heir who built an empire on emotional control. Their worlds should never have touched, but in one moment a single song cracked a decades-old facade wide open, exposing a secret so deep it threatens to rewrite both of their pasts. How did a lullaby from a remote Korean village find its way to a young black singer in America? And why was it the one thing that could destroy a man who thought he was unbreakable? To understand the collision, you have to see the tracks they were on. Sophia's life was a composition of resilience written in a minor key. Abandoned at birth, she bounced through 7 foster homes before agging out of the system. Her only constant was the voice inside her, a gift so clear, so haunting it could silence a crowded subway car. She sang for tips on street corners, not for fame, but for survival. The $50, maybe $80 a day was her rent, her food, her entire economy. The church steps where the funeral was held were just another stage on her circuit. She'd seen the black cars, the men in suits, and assumed it was a wedding. When the funeral director approached her with a crisp $100 bill and asked if she could provide appropriate ambient music, she saw a week's security. She didn't ask whose funeral it was. She never learned the name Kang Min-jun. Now rewind the tape. Min-jun's world was one of polished granite and absolute silence. He inherited not just a billion-dollar tech conglomerate from his father, but a mandate. Emotion is a strategic liability. His mother, Soo-jin, was the only crack in that armor. She was his sanctuary, the person who whispered stories of a different career, not of boardrooms, but of seaside villages and folk songs. The lullaby she sang, called Jarangjin, wasn't a popular melody. It was an obscure regional folk tune from a specific coastal area where her own grandmother was raised. She modified the lyrics, making it their secret bedtime ritual. When brain cancer took her voice first, then her life, that song became a ghost living in Min-jun's head. He planned her funeral with the same precision as a corporate merger. Every detail was controlled, sterile, a final tribute to her quiet dignity. The idea to hire a street singer was a last-minute impulse from his assistant, a gesture of giving back his mother would have liked, a line item on a spreadsheet, a variable he never considered. So picture the scene. The private ceremony is over, the inner circle has left. Only Min-jun remains kneeling on the stone steps, finally alone with his grief. The formal hymns have ended, and Sophia, thinking her job is done, begins to pack up. But then she sees him, not the billionaire but a man shattered, and something in her, the foster kid who knew loneliness like a second skin, compels her to offer one more song, not a hymn, a comfort. She closes her eyes, thinks of the most soothing melody she knows, and lets it out. The first notes are in Korean, ancient, specific, aching Korean. For Min-jun, time fractures. The sound isn't coming from the street, it's coming from his childhood bedroom. It's his mother's breath against his forehead. It's impossible. His head snaps up. The professional composure he's worn like armor vaporizes. His body folds. The sob that rips out of him is a raw animal thing of pure astonishment and grief. His security team, stationed discreetly nearby, is paralyzed. They've never seen him blink out of sequence, let alone collapse. Sophia stops singing, terrified she's caused some unforgivable offense. The air is sucked out of the space, and in that silence something new is born, a profound, dangerous mystery. Because here is the mathematical impossibility. Sophia has never been to Korea. She doesn't speak Korean. She was raised in Detroit, and yet she just performed a culturally specific, geographically obscure lullaby with perfect dialect and emotional intuition. How, when Min-jun finally regains his breath, his first thought isn't grief. It's a cold, calculated shock. This isn't a coincidence. It can't be. His mind, trained in risk assessment, races to the only logical conclusions. Corporate espionage, a targeted psychological attack, a blackmail scheme exploiting his one known vulnerability. The grief is instantly buried under layers of suspicion and fury. He stands, wipes his face, and with bloodshot eyes looks not at the woman but at the puzzle. He gives a single, sharp nod to his head of security. A silent order: track her, bring her, now. Sophia, sensing the shift from sacred to dangerous, gathers her guitar and melts into the city's afternoon crowd, her heart pounding. She has no idea she is now the most important person in a powerful man's world. She doesn't know that her voice just triggered a silent alarm in a fortress of control. She only knows she sang a song from a dream she's had since she was a little girl, a song she thought was just a melody her mind made up. They found her at the 24-hour laundromat 2 nights later, folding a stranger's socks for spare change. The black sedan was subtle, but the 2 men who emerged were not. They moved with a quiet efficiency that blocked all exits without seeming to. "Ms. Sophia, Mr. Kang requests your presence." It wasn't a request. The drive was silent. They didn't blindfold her, which was more terrifying. They wanted her to see the journey from her world of flickering neon and cracked pavement to his. A private elevator ascending to a penthouse that looked less like a home and more like a command center with a view of the entire city. Minjun was waiting by the window, his back to her, the ghost of the sobbing man completely erased. When he turned, his face was a mask of analytical calm. "Who do you work for?" was his first question, not "what was that song?" or "how did you know?" He assumed malice, a calculated breach of his defenses. Sophia, trembling but defiant, told the truth. She didn't work for anyone. The song was from a dream, a recurring dream she's had since she was a child in the system. A woman's voice, singing in a language she didn't understand, but the melody was a comfort. She'd hum it to herself in dark rooms. She built her own vocal arrangements around it over the years. It was hers. Minjun dismissed this as a clever lie. A dream. He had her belongings brought in a battered backpack containing a second-hand guitar, a notebook of handwritten lyrics, a cheap phone, and a single worn envelope. His security chief emptied it. The envelope contained the only link Sophia had to her origin, her official foster care paperwork, and clipped to it a faded Polaroid photograph. The photo showed a young woman, maybe 19, with Sophia's same bright eyes and smile, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a pink blanket. On the back, in delicate, faded handwriting, were three things: a date, the name Sarah, and a line of phonetic script that wasn't English. Minjun took the photo, his breath hitched. The script wasn't just Korean, it was a phonetic spelling of the first line of Jarangjin, his lullaby. In that moment, the corporate espionage theory evaporated. This was something older, something personal. "Did you get this?" His voice was low, dangerous. Sophia explained it was given to her by a social worker when she turned 18, a life file. The woman in the photo was believed to be her birth mother. The name Sarah was all she had. Minjun stared at the face in the Polaroid. The timeline clicked. The date on the back was 23 years ago. His mother, Soojin, had taken a private cultural research trip to the United States 24 years ago. She'd been gone for almost a year. The family story was that she'd been studying Appalachian folk music. She returned quieter, sadder, but fiercely private. She never spoke of it. Minjun, then a teenager, had been too self-absorbed to question it. Now a terrifying hypothesis formed. What if his mother hadn't been alone when she came back? He ordered a deep background check on Sarah and initiated a genetic test with a private lab, comparing Sophia's DNA against the Kang family database, a discreet, illegal but available option for a man of his resources. Then he made a decision that broke his own rules. He couldn't let Sophia go. She was no longer a threat, she was evidence. A living, breathing clue to a chapter of his mother's life that was deliberately erased. "You'll stay here," he told her, his tone leaving no room for argument, "until we understand what this is." To Sophia, it was a kidnapping, a gilded cage. She had a panic attack, screaming that she needed to leave. Minjun watched her dispassionately, then said the only thing that could have silenced her. "What if the woman who sang to you in your dreams is the same woman who sang to me? What if we're looking for the same ghost?" The DNA results took 72 hours. 72 hours where Sophia was housed in a lavish guest suite, treated with cold courtesy and observed by cameras she couldn't see. She tried to piece together her own puzzle. She'd always felt like a stranger in her own life, her musicality and unexplained inheritance. The lullaby was the only piece of a mother she never knew. Meanwhile, Minjun's investigators hit a wall. Sarah was a dead end, a common alias used in certain situations. The trail went cold in Detroit, but the genetic report, when it arrived, didn't need a name to deliver a seismic truth. Sophia's DNA showed no direct relation to Minjun. She wasn't his secret half-sibling. The relief he felt was immediate, followed by deeper confusion. But the analyst's footnote was the detonation. There was a high probability familial match, not to Minjun but to his mother's line, a maternal cousin relationship. Sophia was connected to Soojin. Not as a daughter, but as a niece. This changed everything. It meant Soojin had a sibling or a close relative in America that no one in Korea knew about. A relative who had a child named Sarah, who then had Sophia. The lullaby wasn't stolen, it was an heirloom passed down a hidden branch of the family tree. Minjun brought the report to Sophia. As she read the cold biological facts, her tough street kid facade crumbled. For the first time in her life, she had a biological place. A connection that wasn't bureaucratic paperwork. It was real, and it was tied to the most powerful man she'd ever met. The anger she felt toward her captivity twisted into a desperate shared mission. "You want to find out what your mother was hiding," she said, looking at Minjun. "I want to find out who my grandmother was, who I *am. We're looking for the same person." A fragile, tense alliance was forged. Minjun provided resources, Sophia provided the only living link to the mystery. They began reconstructing Soojin's year abroad, a task easier said than done. Official records were scant, but money opens archives and loosens tongues. They discovered Soojin hadn't been in Appalachia. She'd been in a Midwestern college town, enrolled under a scholarship program for traditional music studies. They found a class roster. And next to her name, listed as a cultural liaison partner, was another name, David Miller. Sophia's blood ran cold. Miller was the name of her third foster family. It couldn't be a coincidence. Minjun's team tracked down David Miller, now an elderly retired music professor living in Ohio. When confronted via a secure video call, the old man's face paled. "I promised her I'd never speak of it," he whispered. "Soojin was my greatest student and my greatest regret." Under pressure, he broke. He revealed that Soo-jin hadn't just been studying music, she'd fallen in love with an African-American jazz musician named James. The relationship was intense, forbidden by both their families' expectations. When Soo-jin became pregnant, she was terrified. Her traditional family would have disowned her. James was not ready for a child. She made an impossible choice. She carried the baby to term in secret with the help of Professor Miller and his wife. A baby girl was born. Soo-jin held her for 2 days, singing her that lullaby before arranging a private adoption through a church contact. She named the baby Sarah. She then returned to Korea, her heart broken, and buried the secret forever. The room spun for both of them. Min-jun had a half-sister he never knew existed. Sophia's mother, Sarah, was Min-jun's mother's secret first daughter. That made Sophia not a maternal cousin but Min-jun's grandniece. The lullaby was a cradle song from a grandmother to a mother passed to a granddaughter through memory and blood. Sophia was family. The math was beautiful and devastating, but Professor Miller had one more secret, a Pandora's box he'd kept sealed. Soo-jin didn't just give her up, he said, tears in his eyes. She left a trust, a small fund managed by a law firm in the city to be given to Sarah if she ever came looking. But Sarah never did. I think she may have tried, but life got in the way. He provided the law firm's name. The trail was hot again. Min-jun and Sophia flew to the city the next day, a silent agreement hanging between them. The law firm was small, old school. The senior partner, upon hearing Soo-jin's name and seeing Min-jun's authority, retrieved a file from a physical safe. The trust had been accruing modest interest for decades. It was now a substantial sum, but attached to the financial documents was a sealed, handwritten letter from Soo-jin addressed to "My dear Sarah." With trembling hands, Sophia opened it. The letter was an apology, explanation, and a blessing. It spoke of a love that was too big for its time, of a heartbreaking sacrifice, and of a hope that her daughter would find a life of joy and music. It ended with the handwritten sheet music and lyrics for Jarangjin. The final line read, "When you sing this, you will know my love for you has never faded. You will know where you come from." Sophia read the letter aloud in the quiet office, her voice breaking. Min-jun listened, hearing his mother's voice in words he'd never heard her speak, understanding for the first time the source of her lifelong sadness. In that moment, the billionaire and the street singer were just two people connected by a woman's secret grief. They left the office with the letter and the bank details, the mystery seemingly solved. They had the truth. But as their car pulled away, a different sedan, unmarked and older, pulled out from a spot down the street and began to follow. Inside, a man with a camera watched them, speaking softly into a phone. "They have the letter, they're together, what do you want me to do?" The voice on the other end was calm, authoritative. "Keep watching, the girl is the key, she doesn't know the whole story yet. And when she finds out, she's going to run straight to the one person we can't let her find." The surveillance wasn't paranoid, it was a confirmation. They tripped a wire in a system they didn't know existed. Min-jun's security team, monitoring their tail, identified the car. It was registered to a shell corporation, but the digital footprint led back to a private investigative firm on retainer with one entity, the Kang Group's board of directors. This wasn't an external threat, it was internal. The old guard, led by Min-jun's uncle and his father's former right-hand man, had been watching him since the funeral. His public breakdown was a vulnerability. His subsequent obsession with a street singer was a crisis. They saw Sophia not as family, but as a scandalous secret that could destabilize the company's meticulously curated image, and more importantly, its share price. Their orders were simple: contain the situation, erase the connection. Min-jun realized the walls of his own empire were closing in. He moved Sophia from the penthouse to a safer, anonymous property, but the damage was done. The board summoned him. In a stark conference room, his uncle laid it out. The story of Soo-jin's indiscretion was a poison pill. If it became public, it would tarnish the family's legacy, invite sensationalist media, and alienate conservative stakeholders. Their solution was brutal in its simplicity: pay Sophia a significant, quiet settlement from the trust, secure a non-disclosure agreement, and send her abroad with a new identity. She disappears, the story dies. Min-jun, to his own horror, felt the cold logic of it. It was the corporate play, clean, efficient, ruthless. He told them he would consider it. But when he returned to the safe house, Sophia had news that made the board's offer irrelevant. She used her newfound resources to do her own digging. She hadn't been looking for corporate secrets, she'd been looking for her mother, Sarah. The trust fund trail had gone cold, but social media archives and old public records hadn't. She found a death certificate. Sarah Miller had died 8 years prior in a hit-and-run accident, a cold case. The location was a mid-sized city hundreds of miles away. The date struck Min-jun like a physical blow. It was 2 weeks after his own father's funeral. The timing felt like more than coincidence, it felt like a shadow. Driven by a grief she'd never had the chance to process, Sophia wanted to go there, to see where her mother last lived. Min-jun, against every instinct for containment, agreed it was a mistake. The city was a company town and the Kang Group owned the factory that was its largest employer. Their arrival did not go unnoticed. At the Public Records Office, a clerk became noticeably nervous when Sophia requested the police file on the hit and run. He claimed it was lost. As they left, a local reporter approached them not for an interview but with a warning. "You shouldn't be digging here," she said quietly, slipping Sophia a thumb drive. "My predecessor tried to write about that accident. He lost his job. The official story doesn't add up." On the thumb drive was a collection of notes, witness statements that had been omitted from the final report, and a single, grainy traffic camera image. The image showed Sarah crossing the street but also captured a dark sedan, its license plate partially obscured, accelerating from a side alley. The reporter's notes pointed to a key detail. The factory's then manager, a man known for his aggressive union-busting and close ties to the Kang board, had been in the city that night. The witness who reported this was intimidated into recanting. The implication was monstrous. What if Sarah hadn't given up on finding her birth mother? What if after Sujin's death she had tried to contact the Kang family, perhaps seeking answers or her inheritance, and was seen not as a long-lost daughter but as a potential blackmailer, a liability to be removed? Min-jun refused to believe it. His father was a hard man but not a murderer. His uncle was ruthless in business but this, yet the chronology was damning. His father dies, a secret daughter emerges from the past. 2 weeks later that daughter is dead in a convenient accident. The corporate machinery had a known protocol for handling liabilities. He'd sanctioned it himself for lesser threats. The cognitive dissonance shattered him. He confronted his uncle over a secure line, his voice trembling with rage. The old man's silence was more telling than a denial. "Some histories are better left buried, Min-jun," was all he said. "For the good of the family, you of all people should understand that." Back at the safe house, Sophia saw the truth on Min-jun's face. The alliance fractured. "Your family killed my mother," she stated, the words flat and final. The lullaby wasn't a bridge anymore, it was a funeral dirge. She packed her single bag. Min-jun, desperate, blocked the door. "If you walk out, they'll find you. They'll finish what they started. You're not a person to them, you're a loose end." He offered her the board's deal now from a place of genuine fear. Take the money, vanish, live. Sophia looked at him, the man who had gone from captor to collaborator to the representative of her mother's killers. "Or," she asked, Min-jun, standing in the wreckage of his family's legacy, made a choice that would burn every bridge behind him. "Or we don't run, we use what we have, the letter, the trust, the traffic photo, we take it public. We burn their world down before they can burn you." It was a declaration of war on his own family, on the empire he was raised to lead. For Sophia it was a turning point. This wasn't about her inheritance anymore. It was about justice for Sarah. She agreed, but going public required evidence that couldn't be silenced, a story too big to disappear. They needed the one thing they didn't have, conclusive proof linking the Kang board to Sarah's death. Their only lead was the intimidated witness. Using a mix of digital forensics and old-fashioned bribery, Min-jun's loyal security chief located the man, now living under a different name, fearing for his life. They arranged a meet in a neutral location. The witness was terrified, but the sight of Min-jun, the spitting image of the father he feared, and the raw plea from Sophia broke him. He gave a sworn affidavit. He named names. He described the cleanup. It was enough to launch an investigation, but not enough to guarantee a conviction against powerful men with expensive lawyers. Then Sophia had an idea, a Hail Mary, the one piece of the puzzle they hadn't exploited, the music. The lullaby was their origin story, but it was also a key. Professor Miller had mentioned that Sujin and her lover James had recorded demo tapes together, folk and jazz fusion experiments. Those tapes, if they still existed, would be the ultimate testament to the real human love story at the heart of this corporate conspiracy. They would force the world to see Sarah not as a scandal, but as a person born from love. Finding 40-year-old analog tapes in a Midwestern attic was a needle in a haystack mission, but Min-jun deployed resources like a general. They found them. In a storage unit paid for by James until his death a decade ago were a dozen reel-to-reel tapes. One was labeled Sujin and James Home Sessions. In a professional studio, they played the tape. The hiss of the old recording gave way to two young voices, laughing, then the gentle strum of a guitar. Sujin began to sing Jarangjin. Then a man's voice, rich, warm, and unmistakably belonging to Sophia's grandfather, joined in, harmonizing, transforming the Korean lullaby into a soulful blues refrain. It was breathtaking. It was proof of a world that should have been. Listening to it, Sophia heard her own musical soul echoed back through generations. Min-jun heard his mother, truly happy for the first, and perhaps only time in her life. The tape was a nuclear weapon against the board's narrative of shame and secrecy. They now had everything, the financial motive from the trust, the evidence of a cover-up from the witness, the human heart from the tape, and a platform. Min-jun owned a minority stake in a respected independent digital news outlet. He called in every favor, leveraged every share. They would run the story, the full, uncensored, emotional story in 1 week. The board, sensing the seismic shift, made their final move. They didn't threaten Min-jun with business, they threatened him with history. They leaked a dossier to financial press, alleging Min-jun's own past aggressive takeover tactics, implying he was fabricating the story to seize full control of the company in a coup. They painted Sophia as a pawn, a manipulated opportunist. The court of public opinion began to sway. The clock was ticking. They had 7 days to tell the truth before the board's smears permanently poisoned the well. The stage was set for the final, public confrontation. But as they prepared to step into the light, Min-jun received a final, quiet message from his uncle. "You think you're exposing a secret? You're about to start a war you cannot finish. Let the girl go or we will take her, and this time we won't make it look like an accident." The threat was a gift. It proved everything. Min-jun played the recording of his uncle's message for their journalists. The story was no longer about a secret, it was about a conspiracy. On the appointed day, the digital outlet published the piece, but they didn't just write an article, they launched an immersive experience, the Lullaby Legacy. It featured the audio of the 40-year-old love tape, Soo-jin's heartfelt letter to Sara displayed in her own handwriting, the financial records of the secret trust, the witness affidavit about the cover-up, and a side-by-side comparison, Min-jun's memory of the lullaby and Sophia's street corner rendition. The final piece was a video statement from Min-jun and Sophia sitting together. He spoke of a mother's silenced love and a corporation's poisoned conscience. She spoke of a ghost mother who sang to her in dreams and a real mother who was erased for convenience. They didn't accuse, they presented, and they let the music do the rest. The effect was thermonuclear. The human story was undeniable. The recording of Soo-jin and James transformed public perception instantly. This wasn't a scandal, it was a tragedy. The lullaby became a symbol of lost love, not shame. Shareholders revolted. The board's smear campaign against Min-jun backfired, seen now as a cruel attempt to silence the truth. Within 48 hours, 3 board members, including Min-jun's uncle, resigned. A 4th was placed under investigation by financial regulators. The Kang Group's stock plummeted, then stabilized as new, ethical investors saw opportunity in the purge. Min-jun had won the war, but at the cost of his inheritance. He was now the head of a wounded, transforming company, his authority built on the ashes of the old guard. For Sophia, the aftermath was a whirlwind. The trust fund, now publicly known, was legally hers. She was suddenly financially secure for life, but the greater wealth was in the story. Record labels, documentary filmmakers, and talk shows flooded her with offers. She gave one interview on her terms. She sat at a piano and played Jaringjin in full, telling the story of the 2 women, Soo-jin and Sara, who carried it across an ocean and a lifetime. The performance went viral. It was raw, it was real, and it made her an icon overnight. She wasn't a Kang, and she didn't want to be. She was Sophia, the girl with the lullaby in her bones. In the quiet that followed the media storm, she and Min-jun faced each other, exhausted. The shared mission that had bound them was complete. The dynamic of billionaire and street singer had dissolved, replaced by something more complex and fragile: family. He offered her a place, a role, a connection. She thanked him but declined. "You gave me my past," she told him. "Now I need to find my future, my own melody." He understood. He transferred the full trust to her, no strings attached. Their final meeting was at the airport. No grand declarations, just a quiet acknowledgement that a song had shattered one world and built a bridge between 2 others. He handed her an envelope. Inside was the original Polaroid of Sara and the sheet music letter from Soo-jin. "They're yours," he said. "Keep singing." Sophia traveled. She used her money to study music formally, to trace the jazz roots of her grandfather James, to visit the Korean coastal village her great-grandmother came from. She found her place not in a corporate empire, but on stages around the world, weaving her unique story into her music. Min-jun, meanwhile, rebuilt his company with a new ethos of transparency. He established a foundation in his mother's name, supporting cross-cultural music programs and survivors of domestic violence, a quiet tribute to Sara's stolen life. But here is the final, surprising detail. A year after the story broke, an elderly woman contacted Sophia through her website. She lived in the Korean village, a distant cousin on Soo-jin's side. She had read the story and listened to the recording. She sent Sophia a brittle, handwritten notebook. It was a song journal kept by Soo-jin's mother, Sophia's great-grandmother. In it, she had written down the traditional Jaringjin, but on the following page, she had written variations. Notes changed. A harmony added. The notation matched exactly the version Soo-jin sang on the tape, the version that lived in Sophia's dreams. The shocking truth was this: the lullaby wasn't just passed down, it was collaboratively composed across 4 generations of women. Sophia's great-grandmother wrote the bass. Soo-jin and James turned it into a fusion of souls. Sara perhaps hummed it to her newborn. And Sophia, who never heard it with waking ears, completed the circle by singing it back to the family that thought it was lost. The song was a living entity, and she was its final, necessary note. The story ends not with an explosion, but with a chord resolving. Min-jun in his skyscraper keeps a single street performer's demo track on his private server. He listens to it sometimes not with grief, but with a strange gratitude. The crack in his armor never healed, and he no longer wants it to. Sophia, on a stage in Paris or New York or Seoul, often ends her set with Jaringjin. She tells the audience it's a song about ghosts and love and how the truth has a melody all its own. She sings, and somewhere in the world, a man who once hired her for a funeral might be listening, remembering the day a stranger's voice taught him that even the most controlled life can be shattered open by a single perfect note. The lullaby did more than expose a secret. It taught a billionaire how to feel, and it taught a lost girl who she was. And in the end, that was the only inheritance that mattered. So what is the true power of a song? This story gives us the answer. It is not merely entertainment, it is a vessel. It can carry a mother's love across an ocean and a lifetime hidden in the subconscious of a child who never knew her name. It can be the precise frequency that cracks the fortified heart of a powerful man, not to weaken him but to finally make him human. It is a DNA strand of culture and memory, passed down even when words and faces are lost. The collision between Sophia and Minjun was a cosmic accident with meaning. It proved that the most carefully constructed facades, whether of corporate power or street-level survival, are fragile against the weight of a shared truth. Their journey asks a dangerous question: what song is buried in your own history? What melody hums in your family's silence? What would happen if you had the courage to follow it? We live in a world that often rewards us for hiding our stories, for polishing our surfaces, but the lullaby legacy shows us the inverse. The deepest vulnerability, a grief-stricken sob on church steps, a voice trembling with a forgotten tune, can become the source of the greatest strength. It rebuilt a broken identity. It toppled a corrupt empire. It forged a new kind of family from the ashes of an old one's secrets. Sophia and Minjun's worlds have diverged again, but they are forever tethered by that single ancient melody. And that is perhaps the most profound lesson. Connection doesn't always mean staying together. Sometimes it means giving someone the key to their own freedom and finding your own in the process. Their story is a testament to the idea that we are not just who we are in the present. We are the accumulation of every secret, every sacrifice, every love song that came before us. And sometimes all it takes is one person singing one true note to remind us of that fact. If you believe in the power of stories to uncover hidden truths and reshape destinies, then you're in the right place. Make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is turned on, because we are just getting started. We find the melodies hidden in the noise. We listen for the ghosts singing in the static, and we bring them to you. Until next time, keep listening. Your story's next note is waiting.